In today's video, I'm going to break down exactly what I would do if I was starting the carnivore diet right now. Truth be told, it's pretty simple. I mean, our ancestors did this diet, and the fact that we're all sitting here today suggests that their rationale worked pretty well. But since then, we have advanced, and there is some more nuanced information that we require so we can thrive on the carnivore diet, such as we need more sodium because we're used to these levels. So today I'm going to give you my blueprint on how to start. It'll tell you how to avoid all of the most common mistakes, as well as my best tips, and then at the end I'll give you my new favorite strategy that I've been giving my clients so that they don't get sick of a lack of variety, as say. Alright, let's begin. There are a few assumptions that I'm making. Most people want to lose weight. A lot of people want to heal conditions. And everyone, I guess, wants to improve their mood and energy. So we're going to be optimizing for those three factors today. How much meat should you be eating? I think that you should be eating when you're hungry till you are full. Now, there's an important distinction in that you should eat when you're hungry, not when you're bored. One of the only ways that you cannot lose weight on the carnivore diet is just simply by boredom eating. Carnivore is the only diet in the world where you can get in incredible shape without being hungry once. However, if you're just constantly eating all the time, it will slow things down. Now, simply by doing this will get you in shape. You will no longer be overweight. If you apply every other tip in this video, the only time you'll need to limit the amount you're eating is if you're trying to get super ripped. So just eat until you are no longer hungry. One of the main issues that people have regarding carnivore is that they get beaten by sugar cravings. Now, in your first couple of weeks, this is completely normal. Our brains are used to extreme pleasure from these ultra-processed foods, and so when you remove them, our brain, which is constantly seeking pleasure, tries to trick you into eating them, and you get cravings. However, after 2 weeks, your brain no longer remembers how much pleasure it got from these foods, and the cravings vanish. The only thing that re-triggers them is one, if you consume them again, or you're having other sweet things, such as dairy. So if you are someone who is super prone to sugar cravings, I would definitely minimize the amount of sweet dairy you're consuming. Now, during the first couple of weeks of carnivore, it takes a little bit of time to adjust. One thing that people experience is something known as keto flu, which is essentially as the name suggests. A carnivore diet is a ketogenic diet, and you get a set of flu-like symptoms as a result of your body adjusting from running on carbohydrates to running on fats. Now, a lot of people never experience this at all. Me personally, I had a slight headache for about half an hour, and that's all I experienced. Now, there's no real way to 100% guarantee you don't get this, but one tip is to make sure that you're consuming a lot of salt. I'll get into the exact specifics of this very shortly. Another issue you may have is your stomach adapting. When you switch from a regular diet consisting mainly of plants to a carnivore diet, there are a lot of changes in your body that occur. One of these is that your entire gut microbiome has to change. Our gut bacteria is determined by the foods we eat. So when you're eating these plant-based things, you have this gut bacteria that's sort of focused on breaking down plants. And then you switch to an all-meat diet and your microbiome changes drastically. And this here can lead to diarrhea in your first week or two whilst you're adjusting. Another reason for this is that to break down fat, it requires something known as bile. So you go on carnivore and you drastically increase the amount of fat you're consuming. However, the amount of bile you have only slowly upregulates. So during this time, when it's upregulating, this fat cannot be broken down, which again can lead to diarrhea. However, for 99% of people, after a couple of weeks, this is gone. For some people, it may take slightly longer if you weren't consuming much meat prior. Now, in order to mitigate this, a great piece of advice is to minimize the amount of rendered fat you're consuming. Now, when you have this fat that's in liquid form, it can just run straight through us. So when you're starting out on carnivore, I recommend avoiding this rendered fat, at least as much as you possibly can. So if you are consuming ground beef, maybe wait till the fat has cooled down so you can consume it in its solid form. The final thing you want to avoid is cramps. Now, cramps are an electrolyte issue, and we can solve this simply by consuming enough salt. If you have enough salt, you will not get cramps. Most people's bodies are accustomed to consuming large quantities of salt because it's incredibly abundant in the ultra-processed food. So, you eat these ultra-processed foods with lots of it, and then you completely cut them out. And then on your steaks, you use the same minuscule amount that you normally do. This right here is why a lot of people suffer with electrolyte issues when starting on the carnivore diet. And to top it all off, to make things even worse, because the carnivore diet is a low carbohydrate diet, we retain less salt. The reason being is that without insulin, our kidneys retain less electrolytes. So in order to avoid this problem, you want to put a lot of salt on your food. But how do you know what's too much? Well, once it starts tasting bad. Our taste buds are incredibly intelligent. Put as much salt on your food as tastes good. At the start, this will seem like an extreme amount. However, Excess salt just gets urinated out. And what happens is that over time, as your body adjusts to this low carbohydrate state, you need less and less. What I personally find is that if I put the amount of salt on a steak now that I did when I first started carnivore, it would taste terrible. By having enough salt, you're not only going to feel a lot better, but you'll also avoid these cramps. Staying motivated is also incredibly essential on the carnivore diet. The best piece of advice I could give you regarding that is to consume lots of carnivore content. When you hear stories of all these people just like you that talk about how their lives have changed from this diet, it is incredibly encouraging and it makes you not want to slip off. And then when you combine this with doing your own research and you start learning exactly what these plants defense compounds are doing to us, it just makes you step back and think, you know what? I don't even want to eat that stuff anymore. Before I started carnivore diet, I was like 99% of people. I was addicted to the hyper-processed garbage. Whereas now, I walk through the supermarket and I look at that stuff with disgust. It doesn't even tempt me. It's gone from me having discipline to me simply just eating what I want to eat. As well as the fact that over time, your reward pathways start to change. A lot of people are addicted to junk food because currently that is what gives them pleasure. However, once you start losing weight, you're feeling better. People are coming up to you saying, hey, what are you doing? And that right there sort of becomes a new sense of pleasure. And you get addicted to that sensation. And because, like we talked about earlier, you haven't consumed the hyper-processed garbage in the last couple of weeks, you genuinely have no desire to consume it. And you continue just simply wanting to feel amazing. Another very helpful piece of advice when beginning is to do it with someone. Everything is so much easier when you have somebody else going through it with you. Us humans are literally hardwired in this way. For all of our existence, we had to fit in. If we didn't fit in, we'd be outcast from the group and would have to fight the tigers ourselves. So simply by having one individual on the same journey as you, it makes things so much easier. Now, what type of meat do you want to have? Well, the answer is ruminant meat. Ruminant meat is and will always be the best type of meat for the carnivore diet. The reason being is that firstly, it's the most nutrient dense and it also contains less of the bad stuff. And what do I mean by this? Ruminant animals such as cows and lamb have incredibly complex multi-chambered stomachs, which allows them to break down the defense compounds in the plants that they eat. However, monogastric animals such as chickens and pigs have much less complex digestive systems. So when they're fed things like grains, they're not effectively able to break them down. So when we look at their fatty acid profile, we see it's incredibly high in omega-6 fatty acids, in particular linoleic acid, which is not something we want to be consuming. Another good option is wild salmon, which I mean, if I was making this video 100 years ago, it would be a great option. The only problem is that nowadays, much of the ocean is polluted with plastic. So when the flesh of these fish is sent for testing, we find that it contains microplastics. And then farmed salmon has the exact same problems as pigs and chickens. Now, one thing you need to do is to commit to at least 30 days, because during the first week or two, whilst you're getting adjusted, it can be tempting to quit. However, it takes at least 30 days to heal. And what happens is that over time, your body becomes better equipped at oxidizing fat. So your energy levels start gradually increasing. Now, for a lot of people, they find that about one day into it, their energy levels skyrocket due to the fact that they have much less inflammation. However, what I found is that I had a massive energy increase at the start, which continued to increase as my body got more and more efficient at burning fat. Now, if you have some serious condition, you want to give it significantly longer than that. However, just so you can absolutely eliminate all of the plant toxins. Now, one trick that I think is super good to use at the start is the 3-meat trick. And essentially what this is instead of eating just a steak for dinner, you have 3 different types of meat on your plate. Now, this can be 3 of the same meat. For example, maybe you have a bit of sirloin steak, a bit of ground beef, and then a bit of some other steak. Or it can just be 3 entirely different meats, such as chicken, beef, pork. However, this does make things easier because most people are used to eating a variety of things. You know, typically in a meal, you'll have some sort of vegetables like broccoli, some potatoes, and then maybe some meat. So when you switch to a diet where you're only eating one thing, it can kind of make things almost sort of jarring. So simply by doing this, it makes it a lot easier to stick to because you're more familiar with what you're eating. Anyway, in summary, eat fatty meat with enough salt and you should be good. It's incredibly simple. I do run a 30-day challenge if you want some support and some accountability, but truth be told, you can do it by yourself. Thank you very much for watching. Subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and I'll see you next time.